But if you thought this was going to be a clean march to justice, oh honey, this is Crue Trime. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Crue Trime. Crue Trime. If you are new here, hi, my name is Sarah, and what I do here is tell you a terrible story to ruin your day and put on my makeup at the same time. So if that sounds like fun to you, you're nuts also as well. Welcome. Anyways, subscribe to all the YouTubey things and then you'll never miss one of my terrible stories. Today we are diving into a case that shook a small town, devastated two families, and eventually put a very disturbed man behind bars. Yet he somehow eluded arrest for 5 years. So let's get into it. This is the story of the Delphi murders. Okay, oh my God, I am not prepared. Oh, I didn't wet my sponge. On February 14th, 2017, a search party along the Manon High Bridge Trail, it's hard to say. A search party along the Manon High Bridge Trail made a devastating discovery near Deer Creek. The bodies of two young girls, Libby German and Abby Williams, two best friends, two bright, creative kids, two lives that should have stretched decades ahead but were cut short by a man who blended into their community like a mediocre beige couch. The moment their bodies were discovered, a small Indiana town changed forever. But to understand what happened in Delphi, Indiana, we have to rewind. Back to Monday afternoon. Back to two girls on a day off from school. Delphi, Indiana isn't the kind of place where people double check the bushes for weirdos lurking, or even lock their doors. It's the kind of small Midwestern town where everybody knows everybody. You can't go to the grocery store without running into your third grade teacher. And the most exciting thing happening on a random Monday afternoon is whether the gas station got a new slushy flavor. It's a solid hour away from Indianapolis. The population is about 3,000, and it was previously most well known for the Wabash and Erie Canal, which is a shipping canal that links the Great Lakes to the Ohio River. It's quiet, it's safe, it's the definition of nothing bad ever happens here. Or was. Delphi's big landmark, the Manon High Bridge, it's an abandoned railroad bridge stretching 63 feet over Deer Creek. It has horror movie vibes, but Instagram-worthy vistas. Beautiful, scenic, and absolutely not OSHA approved. The bridge was a bit of a hangout spot with kids, a place to go take artsy pictures. This is a place where kids could explore nature on a day off of school, not a place where danger lurked around the corner. Although it was technically not really supposed to be crossed. It didn't have rails on the sides. It was very dangerous. But anyway, February 13th, 2017 changed all of that. So local teens, Libby and Abby, were BFFs, BFFs.
Best fucking friends forever, man. Seriously.
They both played sports together. They played alto sax in the Delphi Community Middle School band. They did everything together. 14-year-old Liberty Rose Libby German was born on December 27th, 2002. She had a personality that you could feel from across the room. Outgoing, funny, clever. She was the kind of kid that you would want on your team for anything. Games, sports, group project, zombie apocalypse. She had a spark, and she dreamed of becoming a science teacher one day and even attended some classes at nearby Purdue University to determine what areas she liked the best. Very motivated. 13-year-old Abigail Joyce Abby Williams was born on June 23rd, 2003. She was creative and artistic and the kind of kid who would absolutely have grown up to run an Etsy store or design indie game graphics. Of the pair, Abby was the quieter one, thoughtful and sweet and incredibly loyal to the people she cared about. She especially loved making things for other people, like rubber band bracelets, knit hats, you name it. So together, these girls were the perfect best friends duo, the extrovert and the artist. On February 13th, 2017, it was a Monday, but it didn't feel like one because school was not in session because of a scheduled teacher workday. Abby had slept over at Libby's house the night before. They had spent the evening, giggling and doing arts and crafts. The weather that day was unseasonably warm in Indiana. The sky was perfectly clear, and they had spent the morning morning actually working on their softball swings in the backyard. It was just such a pretty day, and you know what? The Manon High Bridge was calling. So the girls asked Libby's older sister, Kelsey, to drop them off at the trailhead so that they could walk and, take some artistic photos. They weren't doing anything terribly dangerous. I mean, I know I said the bridge could be dangerous, but you get what I'm saying, like, they weren't doing drugs, they weren't partying, none of that, right? They were just being kids, and they were doing it in a community that always felt safe. So they got out to the trail and they started doing what every kid with a phone does. They were taking Snapchat pictures and recording little videos and just goofing around. So at around 2:07 p.m., Libby posted a picture of Abby walking across the old railroad ties on the bridge, just two friends having fun on a day off. We now know that not long after 2:30 p.m., Libby saw something or someone, and it didn't feel right. Her gut told her that something was off. So instead of panicking, she did what would ultimately become the most pivotal act in this entire case. She picked up her phone and started recording. But we'll come back to that. Around 3 p.m., Libby's dad arrived to pick the girls up, but they weren't there. He called them, he called out for them, he looked around, but no answer. Now, this is before the panic sets in. It's still that, maybe they're just out exploring phase. Then, some family members and friends came out to look for the girls. By early evening, a large group was searching the area surrounding the bridge.
One of them just fell off the bridge and maybe broke their leg, and then the other one went down to help them and maybe they got hurt.
All options are on the table. Did they run away? Did they go to a party? Did they fall off the bridge?
But as the sun went down and the temperatures dropped, the worry escalated and everyone felt it. By 5:30 p.m., the girls were officially reported missing. People who had never even met these girls showed up to help because that's what small towns do. When two kids disappear, every adult in a 10-mile radius becomes a volunteer detective. They walked along the Manon High Bridge Trail, down wooded paths, across open fields, calling the girls' names with voices that were starting to sound less hopeful by the minute. The police and fire department joined in the search, and it went late into the night, but visibility was low, the terrain was rough, and the area was really big. So eventually, the search paused with plans to restart early the next morning. The families tried to sleep, but couldn't. The community tried to remain hopeful, but they were uneasy. The morning of February 14th, Valentine's Day, arrived cold and quiet. The kind of Indiana morning where the frost on the grass looks pretty until you're forced to walk through it. But the search for Abby and Libby picked up with renewed determination. Volunteers showed up in droves, despite barely sleeping, ready to find the girls safe and bring them home. Just after noon that day, a group of volunteers near Deer Creek spotted something. It was actually a person that was using their cell phone to zoom in, like binoculars, to look around areas that were harder to get to, and they saw something that made their hearts sink instantly. Something that told them deep in their bones that whatever happened was not an accident. So they called in law enforcement, who rushed in and quickly secured the area, and the heartbreaking confirmation followed. Libby and Abby had been found.
We are investigating this as a crime scene. We suspect foul play.
From that moment on, Delphi was no longer the quiet little town where nothing bad ever happened. It became the center of a homicide investigation, one that would soon draw national attention.
Kids could go anywhere and you didn't worry about them. It's not that way anymore.
Police weren't saying much, and they still haven't released a lot of the details, and honestly, that's for the best. What we can say is that investigators immediately treated the site as a crime scene of a double murder, and they had reason to believe that the killer had left behind evidence. The most significant evidence didn't come from the killer at all. It came from Libby. So when the investigators looked at her phone, they discovered a video that she had filmed on the bridge, the recording taken when she noticed that somebody was approaching that gave her the creeps. That video and the audio that's captured on it became the foundation of the entire investigation. At first, the police only released a still image, and they didn't really reveal that it came from that video, so people assumed it came from a trail cam or something like that. It was a grainy shot of a man walking toward the girls on the railroad ties. His hands were in his pockets, he was wearing jeans and a dark jacket, and the man became known everywhere as Bridge Guy. Later, an actual video clip was released, and it sent chills down the spine of anybody who listened to it. The words were not shouted, not panicked, just spoken calmly. Whoever this man was, he wasn't someone that the girls chose to follow. Delphi transformed into the center of a nationwide manhunt. Indiana State Police, FBI, and local law enforcement partners, just about every true crime enthusiast and Reddit account began sending in tips by the thousands. People were convinced that they recognized Bridge Guy. Everybody from their neighbor to their mail carrier to their ex-boyfriend's uncle. Amateur sleuths built entire YouTube channels dedicated to comparing nose shapes and jacket folds. Through all this noise, police were trying to sift through what was real and what was my cousin Jerry's coworker kind of looks like this police sketch. And the sketches. Ooh. The first one was released in July 2017. It showed an older, heavier man. It was based on eyewitness accounts of a hiker that had been seen on the day that the girls disappeared. At this time, the reward offer in the case was set to around $40,000, but other than the sketch in the video from Libby's phone, there wasn't a lot to work with. And the case chilled. The investigation went on, but it just didn't get a lot of traction. Nothing much happened for a couple years. But then, 2 years later, on April 22nd, 2019, police unveiled a second sketch. This one was a much younger, much slimmer individual, and they announced that this was now the primary sketch. I mean, the public was collectively screaming, which one is it? Pick one.
It's gonna be me.
But the investigators kept saying they had their reasons. Behind the scenes, investigators were developing a timeline. They were narrowing down eyewitness testimony and quietly paying attention to everyone who had been on the Manon High Bridge on February 13th. They knew that someone had abandoned a vehicle near the old Child Services building. They knew that witnesses had seen a muddy, disheveled man matching the general build of Bridge Guy. And they knew that someone had been behaving strangely in the hours after the girls disappeared. So little clues were piling up. You know, small, subtle, easy to miss individually, but together they were painting a picture. And sitting right in the middle of that picture was a local man who had already spoken to the police. This was a man who lived in Delphi, a man who seemed painfully, aggressively boring. A man who blended into the town so well he might as well have been wallpaper. That man was Richard Allen. So if you lived in Delphi at the time, you probably knew him, or at least recognized him. He worked as a pharmacy technician at the local CVS. He rang up people for prescriptions. He sold cough drops. He stocked discount mascara. And he lived with his wife in a quiet neighborhood, and by all accounts, lived a quiet, ordinary life. He's not the kind of guy that anybody would point at and say, yeah, that guy's got bodies in the basement. But here's the thing about ordinary. It's the perfect disguise. So, back when the investigation first began, a man named Richard Allen Whiteman had self-reported that he had been on the bridge on February 13th between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m., the same window of time that the girls were there. Now, apparently, when the tip was filed, it was mislabeled. Richard Allen lived on Whiteman Drive, so that somehow got mixed up with his name. At any rate, the tip was innocuous enough that the police marked him as clear. There was no physical evidence that linked him to the murdered girls. He didn't have a criminal record. There was no reason to suspect that this middle-aged CVS guy was capable of a crime like that. So he blended back into the crowd and went on with his life for 5 years. 5 years of hearing customers talking about the case while he rang up their gum and toothpaste. 5 years of knowing exactly what he'd done. Fast forward to 2022. So investigators were conducting a new wave of interviews, basically a massive strategic do-over of the investigation. Every single person who had been near the bridge that day, they talked to again. And that is how they discovered the mislabeled Richard Allen tip. So when they reached out to him again, he didn't deny anything. He said he was off from work that day. He had gone out to walk the trail, went across the bridge. He described what he wore. He described where he parked. He described nearly everything that the bridge guy did without realizing that he was basically narrating his own incriminating portfolio. Well, investigators turned their gaze squarely on Richard Allen, and once they did, the pieces began falling into place like a cursed jigsaw puzzle. In late October 2022, police executed a search warrant on Richard Allen's home. Inside, they found the item that would become the centerpiece of the prosecution, a Sig Sauer P226 40 caliber pistol. At first glance, nothing extraordinary. A lot of people own guns in Indiana. But back at the crime scene in 2017, one of the details that I didn't tell you yet is that the girls were not shot. That's not how they were killed. But the investigators did recover an unspent 40 caliber bullet on the ground between the two girls' bodies. Forensic testing suggested that the unspent round had been cycled through the gun owned by Richard Allen, the one that they found in the search of his home. Did you guys know that that was a thing that happened? That even if a bullet is not fired from a gun, if it cycles through it, it will still leave marks on it. Like, if a round is chambered and let's say the gun jams, to get it out, you have to like rack it. The mechanical parts of the gun will leave marks on that unspent bullet. News to me. Anyway, so with the bullet and Richard Allen's like reverse alibi and other eyewitness accounts, suddenly this boring, bland pharmacy technician didn't look so bland anymore. Richard Allen was arrested on October 26th, 2022, and it should have been the moment that the case finally snapped into place. 5 years of searching, theorizing, analyzing sketches, and side-eyeing every man in a blue jacket, and at last, the police had their guy. Delphi breathed a sigh of relief. But if you thought this was going to be a clean march to justice, oh, honey. This is Crue Trime. Once Richard Allen was taken into custody, the story shifted from heartbreaking investigation to one of the most bizarre legal roller coasters Indiana has ever seen. And hold on to your butts, because this part is messy. So Allen was moved to a secure detention facility where he quickly began circling the drain. But Allen's attorneys, at least the ones hired initially, came out swinging. And not in a let's build a credible defense sort of a way, more in a let's throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks kind of a way. So they claimed the police were corrupt, that evidence was planted, the witnesses were coached, pretty standard my client is innocent stuff, nothing too wild. But then, the Odinism theory. They argued sincerely that the girls had been murdered by a group of violent white supremacist Odinist cultists practicing a pagan ritual in the woods.
Great Odin's raven!
A Norse-themed murder cult in Delphi, Indiana.
My dream date. Cute.
They claimed that the police knew about this cult and did nothing and or covered it up. They even included photos of sticks arranged in patterns that looked like they'd been part of a mood board of a Dungeons & Dragons player who had too much espresso. The judge reviewed this filing and basically was like, absolutely not. What is this nonsense? It struck it down as meritless. It actually became such a disaster that the judge removed Allen's defense team entirely, which is something almost unheard of in these high-profile cases. Allen had to be assigned new public defenders who immediately threw out this pagan conspiracy in the trash where it belonged and started focusing on actual legal strategy. But Allen also wasn't helping his own case. He wrote these rambling, paranoid letters from jail, and it started to sound like he had something he wanted to confess. He was 100% losing his marbles, full psychosis. And by the way, he started actually confessing to other inmates, to therapists, to family members, to prison guards, and to the prison warden that he killed these girls. He confessed upwards of 60 times. I'm realizing just now that I've gotten almost all the way through this story and I haven't bothered to give you any background on Richard Allen, which is something I normally do, but honestly, this guy was so unremarkable and boring, there's nothing to say. So I won't. He never gave any indication on why he did what he did to the girls, but he did tell a therapist at one point that his original intention was to sexually assault them. Shocker. But a van drove by and he got scared and chickened out. Not only is he a disgusting, sick pedo murderer, he was also a fucking coward. So, loser! By the time the case finally went to trial in October of 2024, prosecutors had everything lined up. Allen admitted that he was on the trail at the time of the murders. His clothing matched eyewitness accounts and the video. His car matched the vehicle that was seen parked nearby the trailhead, and the unspent .40 caliber bullet showed indications that it had been cycled through a gun he owned. And then there was also those 60 confessions. So after deliberating for about 5 days, the jury returned a verdict on November 11th, 2024.
To find Richard Allen guilty on 4 counts of murder. As the judge read the verdict, the 52-year-old Allen remained stoic.
And he was later sentenced to 65 years in prison for the murder of Libby German and 65 years for the murder of Abby Williams. A total of 130 years. With no parole. When the guilty verdict was finally read in 2024, something shifted in Delphi. Not in a cinematic fireworks in the sky kind of a way, but a quiet, powerful way that moves small towns through grief. People exhaled for what felt like the first time in years, and justice delivered, even after uncertainty, stands as a reminder that communities don't give up. Families don't give up, investigators don't give up, and 2 young girls, through courage that they shouldn't have ever needed, helped bring their killer to justice. And that is the story of the Delphi murders. Okay, if you want to know what makeup I used in today's look, then look down in the description box because everything is linked. And if there is something not available, I'll find you something similar. I'll also link my earrings and my accessories if you care. If you have a Crue Trime story that you'd like to recommend to me, also down in the description box is a link to a Google Doc where if you click on that link, it will take you to the form that you can fill out all the dirty details. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then subscribe to this channel before you leave today because I upload new videos here on YouTube every week, and you can follow me on all of the other socials as well. That is it for now. I will catch you next time in the next video. Bye! The wind is winding today. like the big bad wolf is out there trying to blow this house down. Oh my God. Oh my God. Hello? Hello? I cannot talk today. Group project. Blah, 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 blah. Searchers along. Searchers. Is that what you call them?